I want to talk to us about Africa this morning, trying to give you some information. I have noticed in my travel from the questions people ask me that there has been a tremendous lack of true information about Africa. And I'll try to do what I can to inform you about that continent. Africa is a very, very large continent. It's not a country. North to south, 6,000 miles. East to west, 3,000 miles. So we can, if we can, we could lift up the United States and put it right inside the belly of Africa. And this means the greater the continent, the variety of people we have, and all kinds of people we have. We would have people that are very highly educated, and we have people that are no better than the cows they tend. Just to live out there in the jungles. Can't read, can't write, don't know anything about the world. So it depends from from what type of country you come, and even within one country, you see a lot of varieties. Within that one country, you find people who live perhaps a middle-class life. Most of them, or many of them, I should say, have studied either in Europe or the United States and at home. And within that country also, you find people who live in modern buildings, and also people who live way out there in the woods with grass roof houses. So people ask the question, do you have houses in Africa? You'd be tempted to say no. We all live up on a tree swinging like a monkey. Now, it is a good question to ask, what kind of houses do you have? That's a good question. And kinds of houses, anywhere from grass roof to skyscrapers, tall buildings. Houses are built by stones and bricks. Labor is cheap. If I had 50,000 US dollars, before the dollar devaluated, I would take those $50,000 to Asmara, and $1 US would give me $2.50 hours. So that means I have $125,000. This means I have 2 brand new homes built out of stone and bricks, 2 cars, and left over. Now that's hard to believe. But this was before the communists took over. So you can see what happened now. Under communism, you lose anything you have. You lose your house, you lose your car, you lose your freedom of speech. In fact, you lose your own individual personality. They put you into what we say collectivism. They almost make out of us robots rather than an individual person with his own or her own character or behavior. All right? Somebody asked a question, do you have sky over your country? I'll say, do you have one in the United States? I would be almost tempted to say no, There's a big hole in the sky through which we see all the way to heaven and see Jesus sitting on his throne. There's no big hole in the sky. If there's a sky over the U.S., there's a sky over there too. I don't know why they ask those questions. A lot of these questions come. I guess maybe some of the news media just give you the ugly side of the things that we have, instead giving you both sides. Even our missionaries have some weakness. They should inform you everything that we are, telling you how far we have civilized, how far we need to go, how much we have accomplished, how many of our people have been civilized and educated, how many churches have we established, what kind of church groups do we have, and so on and so forth. But all the time, a lot of the story you hear is the negative. I was in Pennsylvania. There were young couples got married. They were both my friends. My throat was not as bad as it is now. I sang in their wedding. They're both white folks, best friends I have in Pennsylvania. So I sang in their wedding. So one day we met again in Pennsylvania, and I was riding with them. I was still going to college in Kansas City. They decided to stop and wash the car. So we stopped, and my friend's wife was talking with me. And looking at the car wash, she said, "Now, Mesgun, this is, I guess, new to you." I smiled a little bit. I said, "No. It was the kind, we used with a handgun to wash the cars. That was the kind they were going to wash their car in that day." I said, "No. Not only do we have in the city where I pastored this kind of a car wash," I said, "we have automatic car wash." She said, "Yes." "Well, they told us this." I know. It wasn't her fault. It was what she heard. You see, I don't know why they didn't make it well-rounded story. I don't know what their motive is. But really, for people to be informed, you got to tell them all the way. The ugly things we got, the good things we got, if we are going forward, if we're going backward, or if we're going sideways. Okay? All right. Africa. Now, climate differs from one country to the other. I come from Eritrea. It's mostly tropical climate. Asmara now is between 75 and 77, 8,000 feet above sea level. The coldest it gets is about 46, that's all. Cold January here, sub-zero weather, the coldest it gets is 46 out there. Almost the year round, but the only time it clouds is during the rainy season, or else every day it is bright sunshine. So when our missionaries say, when they come to us, and say, "Oh, another good day," we could not figure that out. I couldn't. What do they mean? Another good day. I found out when I came to America. That doesn't say America is not good. No, no, no. America is beautiful. And, but I can see what they meant. You see, the weather change. A lot of change, especially in Indiana. Okay? Between Eritrea and Ethiopia, there are 70 languages and 200 dialects. Now, some African countries have ignored the local language. Of course, you can study it and learn and talk, but to save tribal fusses and fumes, they chose the English language to be the official language, like Kenya, Ghana, it's all English. Their accent is British. If you are a member of the body of the Church of Christ, I don't really very much like it. But I'm caught up in between because I speak a tough language, Tigrinya, with a lot of sound. In Kwakohodo Oriskum. Can you say in Kwakoho? You know what that is? An egg. Very simple word in English, egg. Tigrinya and Kwakoho. So our poor missionaries, Kakao. If we say oxen, ab'ur, the letter U sound is just about chokes our missionaries. They're about ready to lose their groceries when they go through those kinds of stuff. Okay. Now the Amharic language has little bit tough alphabets, but mostly it's soft sound. I said in Tigrinya, that means, have you eaten an egg? Now in Amharic, Indeminalle, how are you? Indeminalle is softer in many ways than the Tigrinya does. That's why I have accent, because of the language. Arabic is the same way. Kef halak, zayak. Zayak is not hard, but kef halak, kef hayati. That is, how are you? Or how is life? Now my kids don't have the accent that I have. They were 14, 12, 9, and 7 when they came here. So they worked at it. They sound like any of you, my white friends. If you close your eyes, you wouldn't think it's a foreign boys talking English or my daughter. They just does perfect well. Wife and I have the accent. I don't know when we'll work on it. All right. Africa. So you see, when people ask us a question sometimes, I don't hold it altogether against them. It's the way they have been informed. They'd pick up a missionary, a new missionary that have come. Did brother so-and-so teach you English? They'd say, hey, no, I was already a full-time preacher when he arrived. If I had to wait on brother so-and-so to teach me English, there's no way I'd be in the U.S. today. Now, in Africa, when you think of Africa, it's not a place that is loaded with pythons and tigers and lions everywhere. All these creatures have got their own place. They're way out in the jungles. As I've said the other evening, there are all kinds of shepherds in Africa. Guys that carry guns, others carry spear and a sword. Very fearless guys. They've been born in the jungles. They knew nothing. They don't know what it means to fear. And if they have the gun, they dare fight with the lion or tiger than to flee. I don't think I'll try that. If I have a gun, I'll do what I can. But by the time Mr. Lion gets on to you, your hamburgers, he'd wipe you out. Now they tell us, I was sitting there listening to this elderly man talk about the tigers and the lions. This was a few years back. I was pastor in Asmara. I came to the immigration office. I believe I was getting ready either to come to the U.S. or to go to West Germany. And I was sitting in the living room they had there, or room for guests, before I can see the immigration officer. So there were elderly men talking about their experiences. Boy, I said, this is what I want to hear. This man said, if you are going to fire at a lion, you better make sure you're a sharpshooter. He said, if you miss and if you are close, before you knew, the lion is already on top of your head. You go under, he crushes you. So he said, a farmer lost one of his oxen. A lion killed him. So he went back to the village and he said to his friend, will you do me a favor? I said, what is it? He said, I lost one of my oxen, excuse me. And I want you to load your gun and go with me. You stand about 200 feet away from me, because we're going to go to where the lion is. I will fire. If I miss, you know what will happen. Because I want to come close and make sure I blew his head off. But if I miss, you know what will happen. Sure, he knew. Lo and behold, when he fired, he missed. And the lion coming roaring with a belly full of hamburgers, meat, and landed on the man. Yes, landed on him, but he did not tear him apart because he saw his friend. And while he had him down, he was roaring. How many of you ever heard a lion roar? Wee, all right. Some of them can really put it. And if you're in the jungle, it scares the life out of you. Yes, sir. So the lion was afraid that this guy might run away from him. So he held him tight there, but he was looking at that one and roared at him. So his friend just aimed carefully and fired and got the lion right on the head. Died right there. So he had to have help for some folk to come and pull the lion off of the guy. Hurt him so bad, they had to carry him home in a bed. It took him a long time to recover. But there were two guys going on the road one time, and they saw a lion off the road. The other guy said, I'm going to fire. He said, don't you do that. We better sneak out of this place. And it said that dumbbell fired, and he missed, and the lion came roaring. And it said he was tremendously powerful. He was a big one. It wasn't of the younger or smaller kind of a lion. When it landed on him, it said it made him flat like a piece of bread. And the other one was so scared, he was just like that, lost his mind. He never got it back. He became crazy. Fear. Yes, sir. Whew. So when you become a missionary to Africa, don't be afraid that it would send you to the jungles. And if you have to go to the jungle, some of us will go with you. You're not going to be alone. We'll not let you go alone if we have to go there. Okay? And about these tigers, we got different kinds. Some are big. Oh, they could weigh 500 to 700 pounders. Now, the tiger is always thirsty for blood. Stranger things have happened. Experienced shepherds would tell us in Africa, when they play the flute, some of them can really play it. And before they knew what happened, they said, this is a true story. This shepherd boy was really playing his flute, and he knew how to play it. And something went in his mind as he was playing it, tears just rolling down. I don't know what happened. And by that time, a tiger came. And the tiger was so amused by the music He want to wipe out his tears, but he had a long cloth, just tear his face, and when he saw the blood, he killed him. You cannot have a baby tiger in your house for a pet. If you do that, you're a fool. He never changes his behavior. When he reaches a certain age, he'll kill you. You remember that. Do not have a baby tiger for a pet unless you want to die soon. And if you're going to die, you better be ready to go to heaven. All right? Let's go to Python story. All right? I mentioned the other day some of them may grow or may get as long as 35 to 40 feet. And these ugly creatures, they puff up. And so one day, some of these stories I told the Nichols at their place in Lima, Ohio. I don't know how many of them Eric remembers. But this Italian came to hunt to Africa. A lot of people do. Americans also come to Africa to hunt. But you see, it's always good to ask the natives about the area, what to expect. Ask them which way you want to go, and if you go there, what to expect. Pythons, lions, or tigers, or nothing. It's always good to gather information. But you see, because some of us have been educated in the West, we think those guys don't know anything. We don't ask them, so we get killed. And this Italian came right down to where these big dudes are. An elephant was passing by, and this big python saw it. He always likes to be on top of a big tree because when the wind blows, it's cool. Keeps him cool. He likes it. And he can see pretty good from upstairs. Who's coming? Give you a hug. A bad one. Okay, so when the elephant was going, it wasn't aware what was upstairs, up there in the tree, on the tree. So he moved a little bit and threw his big tail around and wrapped it right around the back of the elephant. That Italian looked at it. He had a jungle movie. Yeah, it was a jungle movie. He said that elephant would pull the python back, and he thought it was going to rip him in half. But he said by that time the elephant mustered enough energy. He tightened himself and pulled that elephant close to the tree. And the fighting went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Who do you think won the battle? Python. Crushed to the backbone, dropped dead. The old Italian said, "Mamma mia." He's in Africa, what can his mother do? The "Mamma mia" said, "I'm not going to hunt anymore." I wouldn't blame him. Oh, especially in those places. Woo-wee. All right. Let's tell a story closer home. Okay? This is an American young man who came to Africa to hunt. Oh, yes. He's been roaming around. He got tired. And he decided to take a nap under a shady tree, which is normal. We all do that up there, but we check upstairs. Any African would do that. Look upstairs, make sure it's safe before they lay down and take a nap under that tree. Americano did not know that. He laid down. The ugly thing was upstairs, up on tree, And he saw him. Oh, he said, I got me a nice looking hamburger, well-fed American, with all the vanillas and chocolates and and the pops and what have you, and the French fries and the fish. Oh, look at this American. He looks well-fed. I'm going to work him over. Came down. He was sound asleep. Never knew what has happened. That ugly thing never hurt him. Just laid beside him, but it had its tail across his waist. His hands were like this. No way to move them. When he woke up, he knew he was in a very critical situation. Very critical. Its head was up there, looking at him, watching him. And that thing looked at him and turned his head like this, as if to say, what are you going to do about it? I got you. Unsaved. He must have known about Jesus Christ. He said, Jesus, if you save me from this thing, I promise I'll keep my word. I'll go and get saved and be a Christian. And by that time, it loosened its grip on him enough to pull his big knife and cut it across like this, and he jumped off. A few miles away were some American missionaries. He kept his word. He went down there and told them what happened, and he came to get saved, and he got saved. And while he was there, they had a teenage daughter. He liked her. Fell in love with her, and later on he married her. I said, what a way to get double blessing. You want to get your wife by way of Python? I think you would choose to remain single. I don't want to go through that. All kinds of things happen. Now in southern Ethiopia, there are big lakes. I mean big. You can only go by boat. And you can see those big crocodile, big ones, long mouth. Of course, most of you are youngsters. You weren't around when President J.F. Kennedy was at the office. You weren't here. During his administration, he sent many what we call Peace Corps. And we had a lot of American teachers, Peace Corps. And one day they decided to go to the southern part where the big lakes are. When they came there, the people out in the country generally are very kind. Really very kind. Naturally, very nice people. When they see you white face, they don't say he's a stranger, we're going to abuse him. No. They have a culture that says, respect strangers when they come to your country. And so they knew it was dangerous lake to go out there. It was loaded with big crocodile. Bunch of them. Sometimes when the cows come too close to the lake to eat, they grab them, and it's over. And so these farmers said, hey, Americano, that's usually the way they call them. They don't say an American. They just say Americano. Americano, don't you ever swim in that big lake if you're thinking of swimming. We got big crocodile, they're going to finish you off. And they laughed at them. Oh, yes, they laughed at them. What do they know? Hey, you better believe me, they know nature better than you and I do. They live there. They know how to live. So much so that they had enough sense to know how to gather different kind of medicines out of herbs, and they somehow put them together as a chemist would, and you find the band somewhere, and you tie that thing around your wrist here. You can go through the jungles, and every time you're coming to an area that are loaded with snakes, they coil. They can't strike. That medicine here, it does. They smell it out, and they coil. They can't do anything. So you just walk over. They discovered those things, and so they knew what was in those big lakes. They laughed at them. All right. Sure enough, all three of them went down in the lake to swim. A big ugly thing, a few feet off of the water, and lays on his back against the sun. See, he's filled up. He got what he wanted. And they waited there for quite a long time, because they knew he'd come out. And when he come out little at a time. Little at a time. And they never made any kind of move or whisper. They waited until he laid on his back, then they let him have it. They gunned him good. I was pastor in Asmara. They opened his belly, got the American young man to Asmara. The U.S. used to have a military base southwest of Asmara. They had him in a freezer, then they flew him to the United States. Now sometimes we go to areas that are dangerous to us, refusing to listen to the warnings of others. Isn't that true all the time? How many of our preachers, how many of our missionaries, how many of our evangelists have warned us of the dangers of sin, of having wrong friendship, of the consequences of sin, and yet we don't listen. See? And when we don't listen, we get it upon us. So you see, Africa is not all that heathen. We got millions of Christians. Especially today, we have 78,000 people a day becoming Christians. Have you heard of that? Every day, 78,000 Africans are becoming Christians. You gave us the gospel, so after a while, we will have to send the missionaries to give it back to you who gave us. Unless you young people woke up and take the lead. You can do it. Oh, yes, you can. Everything that we need is right here. Everything that we need. You can change the course of history in no time if you say yes to Jesus. Now, do you want to ask questions? Don't be afraid now. Yes. I'm not sure. Oh, okay, okay. That's one of those things we call ocelot. I don't even know in English what do you call it. It looks like a python. She's asking me about this. She reminded me one thing. Yeah, they are like pythons. They could be also 30 to 35 feet long, big. They got something like, it's not a horn, but it looks like a horn. We call it ocelot. If that thing grabs you, it sucks your blood out. And now the shepherds, it's hard to believe it is true, but the shepherds know it is. If they get caught with it, they immediately raise their hands like this with big knife. And as the thing is coiling around them, about the time it's ready to grab them, they cut its head off. You got to be very tough, self-contained, fearless guy to do that. If you lose boldness and you're screaming your head off, you lost it. It'll kill you. Now I know a guy who was my neighbor. He fought with a python and he killed it. He was extraordinary, but I tell you, it's bad. Anyway, this was the story I believe I told your dad. This guy, when you look at him, he was tall and skinny. You wouldn't think he would amount to anything. But he'd fool you. He was a fighter. That's all he knew. And he said this ocelot, python look-alike, it came and killed quite a bit of the cattle. Few farmers lost cattle, and they called him to help them out. So do you know what he did? He built him a fire, big fire, in the area where he thought they were. They told him. And he said, as providence would have it, when I had my stones right there on the fire, my stones turned red hot. And I said, I got me a long wooden fork. And he said, two of them came together. Two ocelots, or look like a python. And he said, I ran quickly toward the fire and stuck the fork right into that red stone and pulled it out. And he came for it, came forward, and when he came close, that thing opened its mouth. He knew how to do it, and shoved that stone right into its mouth. And he said, instantly that thing just collapsed. He said, now I knew better. The other was going to fight right and left. So he said, there was a big tree out there. I ran to the tree, I climbed up. And he said, the one knew his friend was dead. So he said, he was just swinging his tail right and left to wrap around some trees. He said, he'd pull them right out of the roots and throw them several feet away. But he bypassed me, he said. In doing so, he found a man on his way and killed him. Yeah, those guys go through a lot of things, but that's it. Any more questions? Yeah. Close. I've been in the jungles a few times. Snakes almost got me a few times, but mainly was the hyena. The hyena, it's a big head, big teeth, and a big neck. It can kill an ox. It's very strong. We have to chase those things. If you're two, it's all right. If you're one, he tries to fight you. Hyena is very much fearful. I'm glad he is fearful because he has tremendous power. He can grab an ox by the tail and pull back, and then he'd let loose. When the ox is falling headlong, he'd jump and grab him by the lower part of his belly and tears him open, kills him. That has happened many times, right in the areas where I lived. They can sneak in on you by night, so you have to watch them. Hyena. No, I wouldn't try it. I wasn't that experienced. Maybe I'll try with a gun. What was it I was going to tell you? Yeah, this hyena is generally very, very fearful. But if you're alone by yourself at night, make sure you have a flashlight. As long as you have that flashlight, he never comes close. If you don't have flashlight, then you should have a bunch of tin cans together and you keep rattling them off. He's scared. He'd stay out there, but he'd follow you. But he'll never come close. One day the sun was setting on a young man, and before he could get to his destiny, hyenas surrounded him. He quickly ran to the tree. He beat them to it. He got way up. But he said, one of the hyenas there tried to climb up. He said he came halfway, and I began to get nerves. He said, surely he's going to get me. But by that time, he said, he fell hard. He went down, boom. And the rest of the other hyena thought it was me. He said, in a few seconds, they ate him up. There was no hyena left. I used that while preaching. You know what I did? What I say? We better not eat each other as hyenas do. We can't eat each other as hyenas do. No, we can't. All right. 1, 2. Elephants. Yeah. You got to watch about elephants. If an elephant is chasing you, you don't run straight. He can pull his trunk out like that, grab you, shoot you up in the air. When you fall down, he'll dash you to pieces. Boom, 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 you're done. He'll pound you like you would a coffee, all right? So what you do, you run zigzag. You try to fool him, and he can speed up. He's not as heavy as he looks. He can run. So you have to run zigzag, fool him, and you got to be quick. If not, he'll get you. I was close to the area for a whole year, close to the jungle area, and way out there were grass roof houses. Group of elephants passed right through that village, and this grass roof house, you know, there was only one door and one little window to that little house. The little boy had sugar in his hands, and when the elephant was passing by, he stuck his hand out and it licked the sugar. Every time it passed through that to go down to the water, he had a little bit of sugar, licks the sugar, and goes away. One time he ran out of sugar. He should have hid himself, but he did something nasty. He had a needle and poked it. Now it didn't harm him, but it went down to the water and loaded itself up to here, loaded with water, got back and stuck its trunk right through that little window and about washed the house. There's a good illustration for people who don't forgive, who like to retaliate. All right, so much for that. The Lord bless you. We'll see you later on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Bless you, buddy. Bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you. Bless you, buddy. Bless you, buddy. Bless you, buddy.